Hello and welcome to DiscipleU. My name is Connor and we are in a course called Intro to Apologetics. And I want to get this out of the way. No, this is not about learning how to apologize. I'm sorry. If that's what you're looking for, you'll have to look elsewhere. This is about apologetics, and this lesson is Apologetics 101. I'm going to define that in just a second, but for each one of my lessons, I want to provide an outcome for this lesson for you. So the outcome for this lesson is to help you understand the foundations of apologetics, its origin, and its significance. So let's start right away. What is apologetics? The definition is that it is a defense of the Christian faith using reasoning, evidence, and logic. Now, we actually have a scriptural mandate for understanding apologetics. You may not know this, you may never thought of it like this before, but in 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 15, it says this, "But in your hearts honor Christ, the Lord, as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you, yet do it with gentleness and respect." So, apologetics has a biblical mandate for us to know and understand and to be able to provide a defense or reasoning as to the hope that we have in Jesus Christ. Now, what apologetics is not, okay? I just want to be very clear. It is not arguing for the sake of being right, for coercion, or mere intellectualism. Unfortunately, now, scattered throughout social media and all over the internet are people that like to puff themselves up, that like to argue and debate just for the sake of arguing. That is not the intent of this course. This course is to provide a foundation in apologetics, helping you to understand what it is, why it's important, as well as other specific topics which we're going to be diving into in later lessons. So if you're looking just for debate points or to get back at your relative at Thanksgiving or Christmas, no, this is not what this is about. I hope this is a good foundation for you to learn about and really care about this understanding of apologetics. So, if we look at the origin of apologetics, again, there was a biblical mandate in 1 Peter, but there's also a place where Paul is actually engaging in apologetics with people. This is found in Acts 17. And if you'd like to read the whole section of scripture, that's found in Acts 17, 16 through 34. But for the case of this lesson, I'm going to simplify it and just read verses 16 and 17. So if you want extra homework, you can do that. But it says this, "Now, while Paul was waiting for them at Athens, his spirit was provoked within him as he saw that the city was full of idols. So he reasoned in the synagogue with the Jews and the devout persons, and in the marketplace every day with those who happened to be there." There's also within this story, Paul is arguing and talking about, hey, I see that you have an idol for the unknown God. And so he's actually leveraging their reasoning, their culture, and he's able to use examples to point to why he has his faith in Jesus Christ. So that's actually really, really cool when you think about it, that, wow, Paul was actually engaging with people, not just using his passion, but using his intellect and his reasoning. In Jude chapter 1, verse 3, it says this, "Beloved, although I was very eager to write to you about our common salvation, I found it necessary to write appealing to you to contend for the faith that was once for all delivered to the saints." So Jude is even mentioning, hey, I want you to contend for the faith. I want you to defend it, or I want you to engage in these kinds of conversations. So we see that earliest examples found in Scripture with Paul and Jude. But when we look at the early church apologists, or maybe if you're doing your own research, where does apologetics first start to appear onto the scene? Well, it actually comes with these three guys. First is Justin Martyr. He was a phenomenal apologist and someone who actually defended Christianity against Roman accusations of atheism. What's so fascinating is back in the times of Jesus and right after, being an atheist, believing that there was no God, was actually shameful, and many people would attack you or persecute you, or there could even be legal ramifications for not believing in any God. It seems silly today because that's almost the opposite now, where you're almost made fun of, mocked, or you can get in trouble for believing in God and obeying God. But Justin Martyr was one of the first Christian apologists that defended the faith against the Roman culture and the Roman political establishment. So then we have another man by the name of Tertullian. He was one of the early apologists who actually coined the term Trinity and taught these doctrines against heresies. So there were many heresies that were coming up in the right after Jesus' time in the early second and third century. And Tertullian was someone who was able to articulate the doctrine of the Trinity and to get the church fathers and the church to establish that as a sacred doctrine, as well as being able to dispel heresies that were coming up in that day. So Tertullian was amazing. And finally, we have Origen, who wrote Contra Celsum, refuting a skeptic's claims. So a lot of people might think that Christianity is strictly an emotional religion, or that it has no basis in history, logic, reasoning. You can go back to some of the earliest church fathers that were 1 or 2 centuries removed from the apostles, and you can find a wealth of intellectual knowledge, not only affirming Christianity, but defending Christianity against other faiths or other reasonings. So this is fascinating. Again, I hope that I can spark something inside of you that wants to do your own research, but those 3 guys, a phenomenal place to start. So why do apologetics matter? I mean, we're talking about it. Why does it matter? What's the point? Why should I study this? Why should I learn? The first thing, obviously, is that it strengthens your personal faith. I know this is something that I've done personally, and man, I can't tell you how much my faith has been strengthened simply by studying, understanding, and wanting to know proper defenses, but also you could say steelman or learning about and growing in the arguments that I believe myself. So it strengthens your faith. It says in 2 Corinthians 10:5, we destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and we take every thought captive to obey Christ. So we're able to dismantle these arguments and these lofty opinions, and we're able to understand our faith and be stronger in our own faith. It's no longer somebody else's faith. It's no longer I hear something on Sunday and I trust it 100% without verifying. Again, I hope that your pastors and leaders aren't misleading you, but it's good to have knowledge of your own. Number 2, it equips believers to evangelize effectively. When you know these things, when you're able to combat these certain arguments or objections, you're able to evangelize effectively to people. When they ask a question of, well, what about this thought? Or, well, I've heard this, or I studied this, or this didn't happen. You have the ability to say, no, I actually know the answers to those questions rather than being on the back foot. So it helps you evangelize. And finally, it engages the culture with thoughtful responses to tough questions. Again, kind of going back to this evangelistic idea, but people are asking tough questions now. It's no longer the Bible, well, that's the book for me, and I believe it just because it's written in there. No, people have serious questions, and they want these questions answered. And they look to us as the image bearers of Christ to help answer these questions and resolve some of their thoughts and reasoning. And so we, as Christ followers, do have some sort of mandate to follow this example and to actually give answers when appropriate. So here's a couple of practical takeaways. First of all, is be prepared with answers, but be engaged in humility and love. It says in Colossians 4:6, let your speech always be gracious, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how you ought to answer each person. There's no sense in yelling or getting animated or being in people's face or, just going after people. We want to respond with humility and love, but be firm and be strong, but that is met with humility. I think that people will be a lot more receptive to that. Another thing is that you can start small. So you starting here now, that's a great way to start small, learn things, understand questions maybe that people are asking about why does God allow suffering? Or I want to know more about the historical Jesus, or did this really happen? You can take some time to study how Christians have been answering those questions over the thousands of years. Christianity's been around for over 2,000 years. It's not the very first time that somebody's asked one of these questions, all right? Use the wealth of knowledge that many people who have gone before you have offered and test those things through scripture and find a mentor, find somebody that you might want to bounce these ideas off of. So, as we begin to dive into the rest of this course, I hope and I pray that you take this seriously and that God would illuminate not only your heart, but your intellect as to why apologetics matters.